With Multicopter Warehouse. I'm one of the original founders of the company, and now I primarily just work in the marketing side of things. But we have a great show today to talk about drones in basically construction and the different products and how they're going to work to improve efficiency and productivity. And we have a guest today that's Jesse from Premier Property Management. Welcome. How you doing today?
Good, Kerry. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So let's start off with what are you currently doing, and how are you using any drone technology today?
Well, we've got a few different companies. We've got an excavation business called Premier Landworks. We've got a general contracting business called Premier Buildworks. And we've got a management company called Premier Property Management. So we're using drone technology in several formats. Our Earthworks uses it, in partnership with our Trimble and Cap machines. So we've got GPS technology on board our machines. So we may drone a site and be able to get accurate estimating and then transfer that data as the job develops into our site tech and onboard technology. Our property management company uses drone technology in quite a few different avenues. We will do a property inventory, an aerial of a home. We'll get the roof examined. A lot of the homes that we manage are 5,000+ square foot homes, and to get accurate information of what that roof really looks like, the condition of it. We're doing a lot of re-roofing here, so we'll provide drone footage, before and after to the client. And we use it a lot for before and after construction projects. So we'll, shoot the project before, during, and after, and really get perspective and depth of, the scope and process of, whether it's a new home or exterior construction or, large landscape. And then we're also able to, we do a lot of, ponds, big, large site work, and have that GPS, the drone technology, and take that into GPS is very, it's making us more efficient. Profitability and productivity is increasing.
Excellent. Now, you're going all the way from the beginning of a project way to the end of a project with using drones in different ways. So let's kind of start at the beginning of a piece of land. So you're going to be doing your estimating. So that's going to get you things like cut fill analysis. How much dirt do you have to take out? How much dirt do you need to move in? Things like that to improve the accuracy of your quotes. Am I getting that correct?
Sure. Yeah, having accurate cut fills is changing, the accuracy of estimating. And we can actually be a lot more competitive because you're taking some of the guesswork out of it.
And then during the project, you're using it to monitor the progress of the excavating and where that project is going. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. With the excavating company, are you often having to measure stockpiles and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using the drones for the stockpile measurement as well?
Yes. I mean, we're we don't actively have our own drone, so it's more technology that people are providing for us.
So you're outsourcing the drone service right now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, excellent. Yeah, there's room in it for both. There's the drone service providers out there and companies like yourself who eventually adopt it and have someone on staff that are doing it. So it's interesting to hear that you're using a service provider.
Sure.
What do you know what products that they're using today, or are you familiar with the hardware?
I am not familiar.
Okay, so there's a number of different products on the market today, and it kind of goes up, like any other product. You're going to have different tiers of products that are going to give you different levels of accuracy. So at your low end, you're going to have more of the consumer products, the Phantom 4s, the Mavic 2s, and those products, which they're going to do an okay job for some things. But when you want to move up into a higher level of accuracy, and this is things you're already familiar with, using GPS positioning, LiDAR systems, and products like that, that's going to certainly step up the game a lot. And the first aircraft would be the Phantom 4 RTK. That's going to kind of get things started with high level positioning using a ground station or an N-trip network or VRS or TopNet Live to get that absolute positioning. Without a solid positioning reference, you can get great relative accuracy in the size and dimensions, but then taking it to the next level with a positioning network or using your existing base stations, you can then get absolute positioning. Where is that property on the planet, basically? And have you worked with, you've obviously worked with different GPS systems, and I believe you basically use mostly Trimble equipment today, right?
Yeah, we started with TopCon, and now we're using Trimble.
And what are you doing with those equipment? That's equipment that you're using, not outsourcing. So how are you using those products today?
Well, we work with Site Tech, and so our project starts by giving our surveys, outsourcing our surveys, and so we outsource basically building the model for us. And once the model's built, we download them in our grade control equipment, and it gives us, real-time onboard, 3D data in real time. And it's, it's basically taking the guesswork out of the earthwork for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, just aside from aerial technology, are you using other GPS-enabled products like levelers or things like eDig, things to help manage the actual work itself?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our equipment is, grade control.
So you're really utilizing technology pretty heavily today to be accurate in your estimating and the actual work itself.
Sure.
Oh, that's good. I always like to talk to people who they're really more progressive than the old style with strings and things to, the old fashioned way, but really using the data that you have to do the work as accurately as possible is really fascinating to me. I'm not on the construction side, but I get those technologies.
Well, and it's, you can make field changes with it. Let's say you run into some bad material and you need to, over X 4 feet, you can make those changes, on board the machine. And it's really just helped us finish faster, less rework, less staking, lower costs, and improved material yields. And I think that's something, that the drone technology, let's say we're going to a job site and the GC may say, we've got, 2,000 yards of topsoil on site and a couple, a couple thousand yards of structural fill. Well, these are just in big piles sitting around a job site, and we can't accurately, take their word for their material, because our value is, trucking and material costs is very, it's something that can, make or break your profitability for a project. So, taking someone's word or your eyeball on a stockpile of material is, not a great way to accurately, approach a project.
So would you say that, well, I mean, obviously you basically said it, but using the drone technology and that data, it's really improved the accuracy of your estimates right from the beginning and help you manage the project. So did you feel that this really gives you a strong competitive edge against other companies right now?
Yeah, I think our estimating is because it is accurate. You're not taking a survey, and doing old school takeoffs anymore. Your cut fills are, accurate to the quarter yard, which is, if you're doing multifamily, large commercial dirt work, those, and we're going down, we're putting this technology on, as simple as a residential home dig, because the costs definitely outweigh, the cost to get this technology on board. Your efficiency and productivity, even on a smaller job, is worth the investment.
So one of the primary things is preventing cost overruns.
Sure.
That definitely sounds like a key thing for any company, because that's when things are going to start costing. It's when you're going to start irritating your clients. That's when things start going bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, what format are you getting the data in from the service provider, and what are you doing with it once you have it?
Well, I guess that's beyond, beyond my scope. To tell you the truth, my field guys know more about the technology that we have on board than I do, because they're using it every day.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know. Do you know what software you're using once you have the data and manipulating it to get that analysis of the cut fills and stockpiles and things?
I don't. Our lead guys, Mackenzie and Dustin, are kind of the gurus on this technology, and I'm slowly, learning it from them, because they did the schooling and do all of our estimating, and and then are in the field with it as well. So, because I do have multiple, companies, I find myself getting stretched thin, and sometimes catching up on the back end.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick look at a video here and see how some of the technology is being used today.
Imagine a new world, effortlessly digitized by an airborne LiDAR system. Today, meet the Zenmuse L1, a payload that combines the powers of both LiDAR and visible light. It enhances the 3D data capture capabilities of drones and enables you to recreate the world. The L1 integrates a LiveOx LiDAR module, a survey-grade camera, and a high-accuracy IMU on a 3-axis gimbal. It has a detection range of up to 450 meters, and the fusion of LiDAR and RGB data produces effective true color. high-density point clouds at the centimeter-accurate level. Infrastructure assets like bridges, power lines, and towers can be modeled precisely by the L1, so you can operate and maintain them safely and efficiently.
Good stuff.
In heavily foliaged areas, its multi-return capability can penetrate vegetation canopies and capture point cloud data of ground features, as well as bare earth. Extract the vegetation point cloud to acquire information such as tree count, canopy width, and height. The remaining ground surface data can then be used to generate highly accurate digital elevation models for topographic maps. In areas with large changes in elevation, the Terrain Follow feature generates flight paths with variable heights to ensure the consistency of the point cloud data. Nighttime rescue missions in complex terrains have always been difficult. The L1 lets you view point cloud models in real time. Mark points, lines, and areas of interest on the live model to measure and annotate. You can verify fieldwork quality immediately and gain critical insight for on-site decision-making. The Zenmuse L1 forms an integrated solution with the Matrice 300 RTK and DJI Terra. This combo changes the game for the quick creation of true color point clouds and reality models. Upgrade your toolbox with the L1. Recreate your world in vivid 3D.
Okay, so that's talking about the new DJI L1 LiDAR system. And before we get too much in the weeds there's really two types of technologies that are used for aerial mapping or surveying. There's photogrammetry and LiDAR. And photogrammetry is a series of images, photographs, that are taken, overlapping, and then stitched together. And then using some algorithms, it can actually create 3D models out of that. And photogrammetry is a great technology. It's been around for a long, long time. And that's what we're going to get on products like the Phantom 4 RTK or even the consumer drones. We actually can do it with the H20 and H20T cameras. And you actually can do it with the L1. It does have a regular camera on it. There's a higher end camera just for photogrammetry called the P1, which is a very high resolution camera, but I'll talk about that one in a little bit. So understanding the difference between photogrammetry, which is just a bunch of images, photographs, and LiDAR. LiDAR is basically a laser system that's sending out pulses of laser and then looking for the reflection off of a surface, whether that be a leaf, a blade of grass, the ground, a building, whatever. Now, there's an advantage in LiDAR in terms of physical accuracy. Being a laser-based system with millions of points being taken all the time, you do have a high level of accuracy. What you don't have is a high level of photorealism. Photogrammetry, being based on photographs, is going to look more realistic. It's going to look like you're flying around in 3D space, or a straight down version, which is just going to look like a huge photograph. So there's pros and cons to both technologies, and you can use photogrammetry for the things that you've already mentioned, the cut fill analysis for stockpile measurement, the roof inspection. All those things can be done with photogrammetry, but in some cases, dealing with LiDAR is going to have an advantage. And the main advantage is when you're dealing with foliage, because if you're doing a photograph looking down at something, it's probably not going to see underneath a tree or underneath a bush. It's going to see it as a solid object because of just the resolution. With a laser beam going through it, if you stand underneath a tree and look up and you can see blue sky, well, then that laser is going to penetrate all the way down to the ground. So LiDAR is typically better for places where there is foliage already and you can get through that down to the bare ground. So both of them have advantages and disadvantages in that. Did that make sense, Jesse? Before I go on, did that explanation of the two really make sense to you?
Yeah, I guess my question would be, does one copter have both technologies on board?
So great question. And the short answer is it depends. When we're using like the consumer drones or the P4 RTK, those are photogrammetry only. They don't have a LiDAR system on them. When we move up to the Matrice 300, which is a much larger platform, as you can see here, that system has interchangeable payloads. So right there, we see the H20T camera on it. We can just unscrew it, put on the P1 to do photogrammetry. We can swap that out for the L1 to do LiDAR data. So very easy to swap those payloads around. Now, you can't fly both of them at the same time. They're just too big for that aircraft. But based on your particular needs, you may choose one payload over another for a particular task.
Great.
Yeah.
And I mean, just so I know, I mean, what is the price range to get into something like that model?
If you need to ask, right? So the aircraft, the Matrice 300 RTK aircraft, just the aircraft by itself, it's going to have a battery charger and one set of batteries and the remote control. That's going to start at $13,100. The P1 camera, that is going to be $6,200. And the L1 LiDAR sensor is also going to be in that $13,000 price range. And then the Matrice 300 aircraft takes 2 batteries at a time to fly on. Each battery is $700, so you're $1,400 per set of batteries. Generally, someone's going to have 3 or 4 sets of batteries. So if you wanted to build a do-it-all platform with the aircraft, both sensors and everything, you're going to be in the basically mid $30,000 range.
Okay.
Now, if we turn the clock back just even 2 years, even a year ago, really, to just buy a LiDAR sensor that can go on some drone, that LiDAR sensor was going to bottom out price-wise at about $150,000. So we've seen this dramatic reduction in size, weight, and price in this past year with the L1, making it a truly, depends on how you look at it, but a much more affordable platform than was capable of being used in the past. And the software and the integration and the how you set up the missions is significantly easier than it was before, making it much easier for a company like yours to take someone on staff and train them up on how to use it versus always having to go out to a service provider. Not that I want to knock those service providers. They do a great job. But sometimes you just want to be able to have someone right then and there who can do it and help make those immediate decisions.
And do you do online training for that, or in the field training, or how do you get people up to speed on?
So a lot of it depends on the software that you're using and your workflow. But we have a training center here, we're just south of Denver, Colorado. So we bring people in here to do trainings. Sometimes we'll go to someplace, someone's company, to do a training for them. Sometimes you just need a little bit of workflow because you already have some of those pieces in place, and you just need to know how do you get the data from here to there. And sometimes that can just be a Zoom call and get you up to speed real quickly on what that process is.
Sure.
So there's no one answer that fits every company.
So if we were to have some sort of issue, there's generally someone you can get on the phone to, you know, to field your problems.
Yeah. So when you're working with Multicopter Warehouse, you're going to be assigned a specific salesperson for your particular region, and that person is very skilled in the aircraft, the software, the processing, and can pretty much answer those types of questions and help keep you out of harm's way, so to speak. So our staff is very knowledgeable on that, and it's one of the things we pride ourselves on is having the staff on board. Now, just as a reference, the L1 and the P1 with DJI, these are considered their geospatial products. And in order to sell these products, we have to qualify as a geospatial dealer and prove that we have the staff on board that can answer those questions and help customers. So we're one of very few companies that can actually sell this product.
Interesting. And I guess one other question that we run into quite often here is, you know, our office is located in the Aspen Airport Business Center. So our valley has a lot of flight restrictions for drones.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, you know, beyond the, you know, kind of the homeowner edition, do you have more clearance with these copters?
I'm not going to say that you have more clearance, but as you go through the process of becoming in order for someone on your staff to fly, they would have to have what's called a Part 107 certificate from the FAA. So they got to go pass a test, and it covers things like airspace and rules and regulations and that type of stuff. Now, once you have that license, so to speak, you should at that point know how to get past some of these restrictions. Everything is possible, so to speak, unless you fly next to Centennial Airport, in which case, no, it's not possible. But most other places, it is possible. And there's several different processes that can be at play depending on the area. In most cases, you're simply using an app on your phone and saying, here's my flight plan. Here's what we're going to do at this time. We're going to be at this altitude for this long. And generally within 10, 15 seconds, you have authorization to fly. And then you're kind of good to go at that point. If it's the next higher level of airspace and you're too close to an airport, well, you might not get it through that system, which is called LAANC, LAANC. If you can't get it through LAANC, then there's a process of going on to FAA-dronezone.faa.gov, submitting it there, and then that will kind of force more of a manual process of working between the FAA for the airspace authorization and the airport for their okay and coordination. I have friends who have done jobs literally on the runway of Denver International Airport. So anything is possible. It's just a matter of understanding the procedures and how to go about getting that authorization and clearance to fly there. In most cases, it's not a big deal. In others, it can take a little effort.
Gotcha.
So it is something to work through. And that's a good reason to go with the drone service provider in your case, because they know how to do that and they've worked through that probably many times. They have contacts at those airports they already know, and they can get things smoothed through pretty easily. Otherwise, it's just a process of learning how that process works at some of the different airports. Aspen, not the worst by any stretch. Like I said, Centennial right next to me, they're probably the worst. So Denver, surprisingly, they were actually pretty decent to work with for a couple of guys. So anything is possible. It's just understanding the process, procedure, and who to talk to.
Sure. Are you currently working with any local companies in the Aspen area?
Well, my short answer would be probably. I don't interface with the customers as much as I used to. So the ones that I know specifically, my specialty has always been in public safety. And so I know the guys at Aspen Mountain Rescue and all the, pretty much if they're a search and rescue team in Colorado, I know who they are. That has always been my specialty in the business. And some of these things are very useful for their purposes, but they're generally looking at the H20T camera, which we've got some pictures of. And the beauty of that camera is it has a wide angle lens, a 24 times zoom lens, and a thermal sensor. So for mountain rescue guys who are trying to find a missing person, that thermal camera can really be a big benefit in trying to locate somebody. Now, in the construction field, that camera can also be used for certain inspection applications where you're looking at heat. Now, maybe not in new construction as much as remodeling, where you want to get a picture of a house and see where there's heat leakage. Is there heat leakage in the roof or in the walls where you might need to improve the amount of insulation that's there? It can detect water damage on a roof because that's going to have a different temperature than the surrounding areas. So a thermal camera can be very useful for some types of inspection work as well. Generally for your average contractor or construction or excavator, you're not going to use thermal. But in those applications where you're inspecting something, thermal can be a big advantageous tool.
Sure.
Yeah, a great thermal image right there. And you can see there's heat leakage on that second floor, and certainly a lot of heat leakage on the roof, indicating where some work needs to be done to improve that. So it's a great tool for that type of application. And if we were looking at that roof and we saw a real blue spot, which indicated it was colder in one particular spot, that could be an indication of water damage there that would then have to be gone up probably inside and checked out to see if there was some rot up there. So thermal can be a good tool. And because you have, these different companies that do different things, your property management company may be more interested in looking at something that has a thermal capability for doing that type of inspection work. So you're not one product fits all. You have such a broad range of things that you probably need a range of different tools, or some specific to each company.
Yeah. And does that come in a format of one copters kind of would fit into our model?
Generally speaking, the M300 being the base aircraft, and then having these different payloads certainly is the most versatile platform that you can get, because it can take the thermal camera, it can have the P1 camera, it can have the L1 LiDAR sensor. So the M300 is certainly the go-to platform for versatility. The advantage of the Phantom 4 RTK, which I've mentioned a few times, is simply cost. The P4 RTK being purely a photogrammetry drone, if that's a need that you have, the P4 RTK is going to come in around, a complete system with base station, everything, you're under $10,000. So there may be situations where that's really all you need. So why pull out the big guns? But if you just want to invest in a single platform, the M300 would be the way to go, and then have the variety of payloads available to do whatever mission that you need to do.
And we were touching on this earlier, but the compatibility with, TopCon, Trimble, the transition of technology, is that something that's difficult to do? Something that you've got a third party that can transition those technical gaps, or?
So I'm going to go back to my default answer to everything on it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on what is it that you're trying to do. Now, in a lot of cases, the only real compatibility or things that we're looking at on how we can use the different tools together is when setting up the flight mission for the aircraft. And if we just go up and we fly a mission, we'll get good data and we'll get relative accuracy. So we may get a good pattern or we may get a good point cloud, but we don't know where it is. So for some applications, that's fine. You know, if I'm just surveying a big field for cut fill, I don't really care where it is. I just care what's there. But if I'm dealing with property boundaries, now the accuracy of where that is on the planet becomes very, very relevant. And that's when we need to put down some ground control points and have them marked with a very high level of accuracy. Now that's where you can use existing equipment that you may already have. Trimble based, yeah, you're using Trimble, right? So you could use one of their rovers, which is going to be much faster to walk around, mark each control point on the ground. Maybe you're putting out 3 to 5, depending on the size of the area, and getting those marked very quickly with Trimble equipment versus trying to do it with the DJI equipment, which is actually really slow. I mean, you're spending 20 to 30 minutes at each ground control point, and it's just not a very efficient way of marking those GCPs. Using your existing equipment, you can walk around and, you know, a good Trimble rover can get its position in like 5 minutes versus 20 or 30 minutes. So it would be way more efficient to do that with some of your existing equipment. So yeah, this is a base station here. You're just going to go around, put it up, mark those control points, and then import that data into your processing software to kind of finish up the job there. Now, the data itself, now that also is going to kind of be a big, it depends on what you're trying to do. In most cases, you're taking the point cloud data and importing it into some survey software that you already have and being able to then do your measurements and analysis in the existing software. So there's standardized data that comes out of the processing side of the aircraft that you can pretty easily move into something else. And then there's third-party software that some people need for other types of processing. So there's people that use Pix4D Survey for dealing with the LiDAR data, or Pix4D Mapper for doing the photogrammetry. There's Pix4D Fields if you're doing agriculture work. There's a number of different applications that will put the data into a format that you can then move into whichever software you're already using. So that's one of those things that my guys would help figure out, is what format do you need, and then how do we go from the memory card on the aircraft to usable data in your software. So that is kind of where we step in and go, all right, you're going to need this, this, and this, or it's going to do it for you and you're good. Let me show you how that's going to work. So it kind of depends on the situation and what software you're using, but we'll help figure that out.
Okay. And does Trimble provide a drone as well? Would that be a competitive? Or
I don't remember if Trimble has their own product anymore, but they were working with other stuff. But they're familiar with the DJI products. And if you say, well, this is what I have, I'm going to be using a DJI P1 for photogrammetry or an L1 for LiDAR, they'll be like, oh yeah, just import the LAS file into this, whatever software you're using. They probably already know how to do that.
Yeah.
So most of those companies don't really have their own product. Some of them are reselling DJI products. Some of them used to sell the Intl hardware. Some of them are selling the Wingtra. So they don't really have their own drone, but they know how to work with the data from all the existing ones that are out there that, are big companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where I think, I'm kind of old school excavator, just, the taking myself out of the comfort zone of the transit and takeoffs and so we take our survey information, our architect information, and send it off to a modeling, third-party modeling company who will take all that information and build these models for us. then the models will go to site tech, and our site tech, rep will come out, set up our rover base station, our ground control points, and onboard, the information into the machinery. So that back end is kind of where I get a little lost.
I don't blame you, because there's a lot of moving pieces, and understanding where they all fit together really is the meat of it. Getting the aerial data, I mean, even I can do that.
Yeah.
Doing a cut fill analysis, I have to leave that for someone else. I don't know how to do that, but yeah. I can measure a stockpile. I learned how to do that. So,
well, I mean, I would assume our same modeling guru, his name's Preston. I think he's actually located down close to you guys, but we would probably take that same information if we didn't, want to rack our brains on how to develop it. He could probably take that information and just do it,
Yeah. Just need to find out what workflow he has, and then we can recommend the right processes and maybe software to get that done and help get you on your way. It would be a process, and maybe iterative, of starting somewhere and working your way up into more and more of doing it yourself. In the end, it would probably be a nice cost savings, but you also have the personnel. You have to have the people there who have the time to go out and do it versus doing their existing jobs.
Yeah.
So, did you have any other questions on the hardware or the systems that are in place? I hope I covered the payloads pretty well and explained the differences.
I mean, I think you need to kind of understand, what the needs are for the clientele, and that's kind of why I was, we've got such a wide range where it could just be, photo images that we're taking, but also the cut fill data, I think, would be, very efficient for us, whether it's, before a job or during a job, or just understanding those values and taking the guesswork out of it.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to talk to you some more. I just want to do one last point before we close things up for today. I did talk mostly about the L1, but I want to cover some stuff on the P1 very quickly here. The Phantom 4 RTK, as I mentioned, that's a great photogrammetry camera, very simple to use, a lot more affordable. But the P1 camera, one of the things that it does that's different is, instead of just pointing straight down and doing the images like most aerial platforms do, this particular camera has a feature called Smart Oblique. So as it's flying, that camera is actually spinning around. It does a shot straight down, and then it spins around getting more images. So in essence, it's collecting 5 times more data than a regular aerial camera, because it's also getting these angled shots, which can help get under things like a big tree or something. So it's giving a lot more data at a higher resolution. So when it comes to photogrammetry, that's why this one is really a mission purpose built camera. It's designed for photogrammetry, in doing it in a way that other cameras don't do. So I didn't want to fail to mention that, because we talked more about the L1. But Jesse, thanks for joining me today. Love hearing about your business and the different things that you're doing. And hopefully this gave you some insight into some of the different products and things that are out there that we may be able to help you with your business.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. Appreciate it.
All right. And all you out there, thanks for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you later. Again, you can always reach me, Kerry K. Garrison at multicopterwarehouse.com. And again, thanks, Jesse. It was enjoyable. And hopefully we'll catch some of you guys out there later.
Sounds good, Kerry. You have a good day.
You too.